Good evening. I'd like to welcome all of you to the City Council work session and special meeting of Wednesday, August 23rd. And first, we will call the meeting to order and approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye. Okay. So the way we're going to start out the meeting is we're going to have public comment, but we want that public comment to be anything that is not part of the main topics of our meeting. And then after the presentations of both of the projects, you will have a chance to make public comment specifically about those projects. So is there anybody that has any public comment on anything other than the City Hall and the police station? Is there anyone online that has a comment? Okay. Anybody? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the way we're going to start this off is we're going to separate the two projects. And the first project we will discuss is the police station. And then at the conclusion of the presentation, we will allow public comment on the police station project. And then we'll do the same thing for the City Hall. Okay, pretty clear? Go ahead.
Thank you. So first off, before I hit share screen here, I wanted to say thank you to everyone for giving us the opportunity to present again today. We have been, since our last June meeting, busy, diligently working and putting together some concepts that we're excited to share and get feedback on. I will say these are conceptual in nature, so they are subject to change and evolve based on feedback from the public and from council and from our consultants. We've been working with the city also to get early feedback from various departments. And so I also wanted to say thank you to them for making themselves available. This has been a fast clip. And so thank you. So with that, I will share and we'll look at some images. Okay, so what we're looking at here first is our conceptual proposed site plan for the police station. I'll start with a rough overview. So the highway, the southern access here is the shared access with Pennsylvania Main Line. Our proposed site circulation is that being the primary access, coming up to an area of public parking. The building is located on the flat portion up on the hill of that site. We've been working with the police department and with emergency management in terms of maintaining its function as the cache site. So one thing you'll see on here are the existing cache shed and the containers there as part of the plan. At the north side of the building, we have secured parking for officers. I'll zoom in and talk a little bit about that more in a moment. The northern access here in lighter gray, this is something that we've been working with ODOT on both of these access points. We've gotten pretty clear confirmation that the southern access will be allowable without triggering highway improvements, which was great news that we got from them. The northern access is not as sure. So we're continuing to advocate that be maintained, but there is a fair probability that ODOT will not allow it and mandate that it be removed. What we are proposing and advocating for is that it be an exit only from the secure parking for police vehicles exclusively. So I'll zoom in here a little bit. Again, the southern access, this would be shared. What we're currently talking about is just stop sign control at this intersection. It would be, again, subject to more design work as we move forward, but currently it would be 1 lane in and 2 lanes going out, a right turn lane and a left turn lane. That leads to public parking. And the primary public entry on the south facing facade of the building. The drive comes around here and leaving access to the existing cash building and containers. We've also left open the current road up the hill for public works. Right now, we're showing this fenced secure parking area. This is a topic of conversation that is continuing about the extent to which we secure this area. It's a conversation with emergency management, whether to include the cash buildings in that secured controlled access or leave it open. We were fortunate to get several comments, feedback from the police department that we're still working to implement. And I've also shared this with our police consultants and have gotten comments there too. So again, this is subject to change and evolve as we get more information. The staff entries are from the secure parking area. The idea is that police vehicles would come up here, enter the secure parking area, and then have dedicated entries on the north side of the building, separate from that primary public entry. Are there any questions on the site plan for this before I move on?
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. So when you said that it's probable that the north entrance exit may not be allowed, did I hear you correctly?
You did.
So if it is allowed, you're saying that you want the police vehicles to only be able to use it?
That was our original concept. Yes, that it would not be, it's shown as a narrower road than the primary to and from.
Okay.
And the concept is that this would be a fast, efficient way for police vehicles to leave the site without crossing other traffic. So it would be an exit only path from the secure parking.
Okay. And so if anybody parked in the public area would just need to turn around and go back out the way they came.
Correct.
Okay.
And what we learned from ODOT is that they don't have record of this being a permitted access point. So to keep it, we will need to apply to have it granted as an access point.
Thank you.
Leslie, there's been an area in there that's been used as a helipad. Is that still part of the plan or is alternative plan?
So the plan right now is to size that secure parking area sufficiently so that it may be used for helicopters. I will say this plan is being reviewed currently because we received the survey work to understand the topography a little bit better. So we're currently looking at ways to lessen the impact on grading. My guess is that that will impact that secure parking area the most because that's where we have the most change in topography.
Questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let's look at the insides of the building. So the floor plan here, and again, we're currently implementing some feedback from the department as well as from our consultants. But the main entry is in this alcove on the southwest side of the building. It leads to a public lobby, public toilet room and reception area that would have a reception counter and bullet resistant glazing there at that interface. The other part of the building that is potentially open to the public is this interview room. This has access from both sides. So that small area would be the security perimeter or barrier. The public would not be anticipated to go beyond those very specific areas. Moving through this, we have space for the administration, for storage, 2 entries, again, on the north side of the building that would be exclusively for staff from the secure parking. Offices for the chief, for the lieutenant, and then we have an extra office for a future detective, or in the interim, that could be used as a smaller conference room. The large area in this plan, we've called it the squad room. It's 10 workstations, cubicles, which would be the hub of the building where the bulk of this work is happening. That's immediately adjacent to the Emergency Operations Center. This room, called the OC Training Center, would really be multifaceted. It has casework and break room functions for the police on a day-to-day basis, would also function as their large meeting space and conference room, but in the event of an emergency would function as the EOC. This is a sliding wall between the two so that in case of an emergency that opens all the way up. You can also repurpose that squad room for a large area out of which to operate the EOC. From this second entry, just move to the back, is another secured area of the building. This is the processing, booking, and the couple of holding cells we have. So if someone is in custody entering the building, they would be limited to this corner for booking and the holding cells only. Beyond that, a few other areas we have storage for equipment, storage for evidence, and evidence processing. Those are the primary functions that we're looking at. Any questions or comments on that?
Where are the showers?
There is one shower, so the toilet rooms are placed centrally. One of the toilet rooms includes a shower, the other one does not. Placed in proximity to the locker rooms. That's one of the comments that we may review for reorganizing to get that even closer to the locker room.
Did you mention the evidence processing and evidence room?
Only very briefly. So evidence processing is here. It is located because it is admin staff who has primary access as the evidence processing technician. And so this is another very secure area with exclusive access to evidence storage. This rectangle you see here in the wall would be an evidence pass-through, kind of like mailboxes, so that officers coming in from this back entrance can drop off evidence, work with evidence before it goes to the evidence tech.
And talking to the officers, they said that one shower was enough for them for the whole.
That is our current direction.
And the officers were given this presentation, and then they all received a copy of the plans. And they sat down and wrote up a bunch of comments, about 20 comments, and those have been forwarded to CETA for them to consider incorporation.
Mm-hmm. We've in this incorporated just a few of them and continue to work through them, and then we'll meet again with the department to talk some more and include our consultant in that. So this is subject to shift around to make it more optimal for the functions needed.
But some of their suggestions have already been incorporated.
Yes.
And what were the main theme of their concerns?
I think just spacing and flow
Okay.
for certain things, but I can't think of anything that was really outrageous.
No, I don't think so. And the ones that we've picked up, frankly, are the ones that were simple and quick to incorporate. We had a request for an exterior entry to the EOC. You know, there were some doors that got rearranged. The ones that we're still working through are the slightly larger, impactful ones, like maybe looking at other alternate locations for the toilet rooms.
Can you tell me what the reception mail area is?
Yes, so the green boxes here are workstation cubicles. So there's 2 workstations in the back here. The reception mail would be for someone to be that public face at the reception counter with built-in casework for all, not all, but many of those immediate needed office supplies and forms. So that's what this dashed line, that's uppercase work. And then there'd be a countertop there for a workspace.
Jason?
Yeah.
Maybe you could keep the list short, but what major issues do you think this facility solves where your current site has limitations? Top few things.
Yeah.
It may be a long list.
That's why I had her mention the evidence, just because that alone will be great, having that storage, but also the flow and the space for storage. Especially Chris just said today that the closet in his office, he's looking forward to because he just doesn't have the space. And so being able to have a spot where things aren't multi-brand into different spaces so that we can access them easier. Obviously, separation where we're able to come in a separate door alone is a great thing than trying to get through the public, because we may have an officer talking in our small lobby with a victim from something and we're trying to get in to get something else. And so it's just very incumbent to add different entrances and the locker room, as well as a men and women's bathroom, or at least a separate bathroom so that we're not having to go in at the same time. No, it will be great. And in fact, 2 of the employees today were just talking about their allergies, headaches and stuff just today that they were having. So I think having that area where we'll have access, more room and better conditions would be good.
What
I think, if I might carry there, one of the big problems now is that there's not really a place to process evidence. So until recently, they were in a position that they had to process biological drug evidence and eat their lunch at the same workstation. And there's no, the air pressure, we've installed some negative air, but it's not set up to be truly balanced in there. But whatever aerosols there are associated with the drugs or whatever, that just stays in, actually stays in the police station unless it comes over to City Hall. Because we share air control system.
So what does that evidence room look like now?
It's a small old jail cell that we converted into an evidence room. Still has the jail door on it, the metal jail door, but it's full. I mean, it's absolutely stuffed. There's certain things that we have to keep for 99 years. And that's probably our biggest storage from the homicide that we had. And we can't get rid of that stuff. So we have to store it there. We have property, not evidence, but property that's been turned in or that we're holding for people that is in our garage. And so it's just not conducive. It's not easy to track stuff down at some points when we're trying to get it back to people.
And can you elaborate just briefly on if you are interviewing a victim, I think is what you said, what has to happen in the current space?
Well, right now, we can, if we don't have something else going on, which we normally do in the file room, we can take them in there to be separate, obviously. But times where we have a domestic situation where we have a victim that we're talking to in the lobby and a suspect that we're talking to in the room next door to it, we can't have other public coming into the lobby interrupting an interview or officers going in and out to respond to other things. So it's just a really cramped environment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The EOC / training center, is this where if we had a natural disaster or we had a crisis or something and the people had to meet to, deal with the crisis, is that where they would meet?
Yes.
We also plan to have the council chamber be able to act as a larger EOC if we're able to use it.
So would it be outfitted with equipment? Is the equipment going to be duplicated then?
Yes.
And buses?
Yeah, and it's primarily it's communication equipment is what's going to be duplicated. And for example, we're set up, as you can see, it's stored over here. We have a communication equipment stored in the lobby over here. And we would have that sort of thing in both locations, not necessarily in the council chamber,
Yeah.
but we would make a difference with that. And one thing, I don't know if I expressed it clearly, but when Jason is talking about, he's got the evidence processing room in this, it's very different than what we have now where it's currently an old jail cell. But I'm saying that, and this to me is totally unacceptable, is that they're processing biological and drug evidence in the same place that they eat and that everybody else is there working at the same time. And the technology exists for negative pressure to go ahead and take all that out of the building, that kind of thing. But we don't do that. Our people stay in that area.
And this is designed for how many staff members?
So we have 10 workstations in the squad room. That allows for some growth. In the administrative area, we have 2 workstations.
And then the chief and the lieutenant.
The chief and the lieutenant, and then a potential office for future detective.
And the cost for this facility includes the bringing in the utilities, bringing in, creating the access, all those things are fairly expensive but they're incorporated into the price tag, correct?
And I'd like Jordan to address that. He's with Emmer Construction. They are our construction manager. And he would be he's the one that's tracking all those costs. And so if you would kind of talk about how we're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last estimate that we did for this project was back in March. So we're pushing 5-6 months ago. We were really just going off of square footages for what the programming needs were going to be. Just only in the last couple of weeks, we're starting to see some floor plans and elevations and understanding how those relate to the site. But to answer your question, yes, our estimate currently includes bringing all the required utilities onto the site and bringing in the half road improvements. Some of the variables that we're still working through, but we have covered in the estimate are we understand that once we get the geotech, there's going to be some soil improvements. We probably are going to end up seeing some retaining walls to hold back and build the slopes. But we've accounted for all of those as well. But those are all still getting sussed out. We still don't have the geotech report, or we just got the survey. So we're working through that as well, but it's evolving, but the costs are covered.
And you also have multiple contingencies in the event we find something in the soil or there's another problem of some kind.
Yep. So we have.
And they have to look someplace else for funding included in that number.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, the contingencies are also built in there for if we start to see any square footage bloat, right? So our original estimate was based on about 5,000 square feet. Things ebb and flow, but things tend to grow versus shrink. So we wanted to account for that as well.
So everything, including equipment, furnishings, land preparation, everything is included in the estimate, right?
So there's 2 pieces to our estimate. One is what we consider hard costs or cost of work. That's primarily what I'm focused on as far as the construction piece. There's also a soft cost piece as well. That's design, permitting, land use, SDCs, furniture. That cost is in here as well, but it's more of, that one's still being refined and I don't have as much control over that one. That's more on this side of the ledger. But as far as the cost of work, construction, I've got that covered. And yes, the soft costs are in there as well. So that's part of the 25.
We've used a standardized soft cost estimating at the very beginning, and then we can refine it and better it as we go forward, but it is included in the total.
Is there a formula or contingency for inflation?
There's that built in as well. Yes.
There's that is built in.
So currently in our estimate, we have what I'll call 3 contingencies. We have an escalation contingency of 5%. We have a design contingency of 10%, which just accounts for the evolution of the design, catching anything, foundation piles, things like that change. And then we have what we call a construction contingency. The goal during design is for that escalation and design contingency to either get saved or absorbed into the design or 50-50. The construction contingency is always reserved for the course of construction. So things we run into, clarifications, unforeseen conditions, potentially scope change, we want to add casework here. That's what that 5% is reserved for.
Contingency returns to the owner.
100%.
100% of the contingency returns to the owner if there's any left over at the end of the project.
Answer your question?
How well do you feel this building would lend itself to some type of addition for needed future growth?
The site for that is fairly constrained. We don't have, if we go back to this, we don't have a lot of area to grow. And depending on how this secure parking area evolves, there may be some additional area on the north side of the building that we could push that way. We are proposing covered parking back there, but there may be some additional flat ground. Towards the highway, it would be a challenge to grow that slope.
The limitations, the site plan shows what appears to be quite a bit of room, but in reality, that's not the case.
So the topography on here, based on the recent survey, is included. All of these dashed lines, if you can see them,
Yes.
represent a foot and drop. So this is in the future, if that were to be an addition, it would require additional site fill to build that up to have a level ground.
Okay.
Can you talk about to the north, what happens with the grades too?
So the north, we do have another area that is flat relatively. This is where I think some of that secure parking may shift. But around the site, it gets very steep, very fast. There's a creek or waterway that runs down north of the site, and so it drops off pretty significantly. On the south side of the site, the opposite happens, and this ramps up the hill, up towards the water tower. So the slopes would present, they would require substantial consideration.
In addition, if that is something that we wanted to secure, that availability of space immediately adjacent, then we would want to discuss that now. Because then we would relook at how the parking, beyond looking at the parking, but now that we have the survey, but we can say, okay, we want to preserve another 1,500 square feet or whatever the number is for an addition. If we want to do that, then we should plan that now. And it's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry I asked.
It is one of the reasons why we added 2 extra cubicles in the squad room in case we do add positions. And also that extra office, deciding if we do add another position, that would be a detective or something.
The perception, at least from my standpoint, is what you're going from to this is that, of course, it's much bigger, but I'd like to think that we're building this for at least 50 years worth of growth, and I'm not able to predict what your needs would be in that time. Yeah.
I would say if their needs, if Cannon Beach were to grow, or they were to service more area, or whatever the outlier that would require it, that the area that the parking is at could be expanded on, that's level. And you would have to relocate the parking to that next plateau up, depending on how we look at it. But as the civil gets involved and starts to kind of adjust that parking to kind of accommodate that plateau we have up there, there may become a natural place to allow for a future.
Okay,
I would also say that the existing cache building there that will remain and the containers are also located on pretty level ground. If that in the future could be repurposed. We are actually looking at ways to integrate that. So one of the things that you won't see in this plan is a place inside the building for vehicle storage if a vehicle is impounded. But we have been coordinating with emergency management to use one of their existing sheds for that purpose.
Speaking of emergencies, have you consulted with the fire district at all? I had a conversation a while back with the fire chief, and he mentioned that in an emergency, there may be a need to park a fire rig up there. And he was saying, he asked me, is there going to be any room up there to park one? And I had no idea, but I thought I might pass it on to you.
Mhm.
You might want to talk to him about potential. I don't think it would happen very often, but it might.
Yeah, I appreciate the recommendation. We haven't opened that conversation yet. We have been talking about some of the trucking or those large vehicles that would ingress and egress through the site. So I think that is a request that would be reasonable and that we could accommodate. Public Works has similar large vehicles that would be coming through here and have similar needs.
So the cache buildings and containers shown are there and they're going to stay there.
Yes, they are shown according to the survey work.
I think the point you made, just to clarify, the building could go that way and the driveway could move further out and the cache buildings could be found, an alternate location if needed. So that is another kind of exit strategy to add more square footage down the road. It's a fairly efficient plan. What you're seeing, I mean, it's meeting the needs, it's meeting the projected growth. But there's not a lot of, not a dance floor in there.
Did you want to say something?
Yes, in the past, we've offered tours of the police station and of City Hall. And just check with Jason and we can offer tours of, again, City Hall and the police station tonight after the meeting, if anybody is interested.
If you haven't, you should.
Yes.
Okay, so we're ready to see what it might look like. Again, these are conceptual plans, but we put together a couple of options that have already been presented to the police department. So we have a preferred option here to present. Well, this is option one. Again, this is that entry point for the public with a covered area. The raised portion of roof here is the squad room. Up here, we had the chief's office and lieutenant's office. One of the things that we're working through is glazing and security. So there are many options here. We've started having these conversations and they continue about balancing security concerns, privacy concerns, and natural lighting, and which areas those make sense for, and how we can mitigate some of the security concerns through various options. So some things we've talked about are providing bullet-resistant glazing of certain levels in certain areas. Also, we've talked about modifying the size of some of these windows or changing the type of glass for more privacy, potentially bringing the windows up so that they can allow natural light, but also privacy and security. So that's a thing we're talking about and will likely evolve as we move forward.
So the site is out of the tsunami inundation zone.
Yes.
Maybe Jordan, can you describe what's involved in the category 4 seismic construction that we don't really see here? What's
Right, it's really attachments of walls to foundation and then roof to walls. That's really the biggest piece, making it resilient. And then there'll be a shear wall component that really keeps the main structure together. It's interesting. You don't really see a lot of it. It's really a lot of hold downs, holding the walls down to the foundation. In this case, we're going to have some sort of soil improvements and geopiers that are going to be here that are going to tie the foundation to the soil in case of liquefaction. A lot of strapping on the roof to the walls. So really making it one main diaphragm is what happens here.
and the category 4 seismic is required by law.
In order to be an essential facility, it is required. Yes.
Emergency Operations Center.
Yes.
And that means that it will remain operational during an event.
What does this building require in terms of withstanding a landslide? Because this has been deemed a landslide area. So
We will know more about that when we get the geotech report. The drilling for that is scheduled, I believe, 2 weeks from today, and then we expect that report at the end of September. I'm hopeful because the equipment that was set up for the Southwind site for the landslide, we had someone go back and read what had happened over these last several years, and there had been no discernible movement.
if there was an earthquake, how would that land slide? I mean, that's when your landslide is going to occur, is when there's an earthquake, I would imagine.
So the geotechnical engineer is going to advise us as to what areas need to be stabilized for this building. So they understand where the building is, where the slopes are. So they'll advise for under the building and for the site.
So you don't really know yet how that's gonna.
The city has retained a very good geotechnical engineer, and which CETA has actually worked with several times on difficult sites. So we're looking forward to seeing what the results are. And they're going as fast as they can. The drill rigs are just out.
And the cost estimate, have you taken that into consideration for the cost?
We 100% have the cost for the soil stabilization underneath the building included, and soil stabilization outside of the building for landslides. Again, we have a healthy contingency to deal with those types of things. We just can't have too many of them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but we have dollars to cover these things. They're foreseeable, just not quantified.
Will you be giving us a report on the landslide study?
Yes.
I'd really like to see that.
I will say, when we were initially talking about putting together the budget, the best information we had at that time was the Southwind site and the work that had been done there. So that's what we were looking at, and worst case scenario assumed that would be applicable here as well. So the same concept here, just a slightly different angle. Again, the large area in the middle is the squad room, the EOC on the right, and a front view of this initial option. The second option, this one, the roof line is a little bit different. It's based on the same floor plan, so you'll see the same volume that is the squad room. This one, because of the offsets in the roof, has some additional opportunity for some high windows into that squad room that would provide natural light but not be a security concern. A different view as you come up the access drive. And a view of the front from the highway.
Can you mention which one's preferred by?
So the second option here that we're looking at now this is the initial option we were told was preferred by the department.
Overwhelmingly,
What's that?
overwhelmingly approved?
No, I think that was what they had decided once we had them. That's what they agreed on.
We made this presentation to the officers.
And was one of the factors, the fact that you could put those windows up higher?
Yeah.
Any more questions about the police department?
Okay, so we're ready for public comment. I just want to remind people, kind and respectful. And we're ready to proceed. So who would like to go first? Jan?
Jan Siebert Warman, P O Box 778, Cannon Beach. Well, thank you so much. I think I love the first building, especially, but I want the people that work there to be really happy. I just wanted to ask Jason something, and I wasn't sure if this was appropriate timing, but I had read somewhere that, well, I was getting confused because one place I read there was going to be a 6,000 square foot police station building. And then tonight, I think Jordan mentioned 5,000 square feet. And I read somewhere or heard somewhere that Jason, you were comfortable with a 5,000 square foot building. I would much rather have a 5,000 square foot building than a 6,000 square foot building. We're not a big town, and I just would like to have some sort of tweaking it a little bit smaller from the 6,000, but if we go to 5,000, I think that would be okay. So I'm just bringing that up because I think a lot of people are very concerned, and maybe we could save a few pennies tweaking it back. And plus, I think it maybe fits our village character. But I have to say, especially that first one, it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. So they're both beautiful, but especially the
I can address the square footage if it's appropriate. So what you're looking at right now is actually in between the two. This floor plan is, it's right at about 5,500.
Okay.
And as we work through some of these adjacencies and efficiencies, our goal is to incrementally get that back down to about that 5,000 square foot goal.
good. Okay.
And Jan, whenever there's an iteration, either in City Hall or the police station, the first information that's reported to us is the new square footage. So we're constantly watching it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
That's. Sam?
Hello. Steady off. Knowing that this is a concept, I will reserve a lot of my nitpicky stuff for later.
Oh, boy.
I wanted to kind of address a little bit of the question that Nancy had about the landslide. Just historically, geographically, I've talked to Tom. This is not a landslide area in itself. The hillside just to the southeast could be. So more than likely that would fall down on top of it rather than it going anywhere. This is actually a gully wetland that was filled by all the stuff from And some people have said from the sewer ponds, and some people have said from the overpass. Could have been parts of both. I think the overpass stuff is the hill that's just to the north, the upland area. So this is all fill, uncompacted fill. So I'm sure they'll find that out when the geotech start poking holes right there. So that's just the one, help clarify that. The hillside, according to Tom, to the south is very secure, has never slid in the past, like the area of the full Southwind site. That's just what he told me. And that was a while ago. I don't know if he's reconsidered or reassessed anything. This part of the site plan thing is, my first reaction is there's a lot of wiggle room yet to go with the site. So I think there is probably some possibilities to, Brandon's concerned about making potential future spaces. I think that's quite capable. Looking at how you might squish it around what's on there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Next, Les.
This so that full blown, and you need my name and address and all that stuff. Les Sinclair, PO Box 1394. First of all, thank you very much. Love it. Really pleased with the way it looks and feels. My questions, and they're just questions, were around emergency operations. I've always assumed once we decided to split the police department away from the city hall that we would actually have all of the city records, electronic records anyway, in some kind of hardened facility where they would be accessible after we lost the city hall and, you know, in a Cascadia event. I'm not sure that I see that reflected in the footprint right now. Maybe that's not what you intend. But I would think that that this facility having the best possible communication and emergency response, you know, emergency power capabilities are important. And I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
I think that we can have Rusty answer that for you.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm not trying to
Oh,
put him on the spot, but
No, that's the intention. And all the communication gear, there's an IT closet that's right against the back. You'll see that's where all that gear would go. So
that's enough square footage. It's small to me, but that's a layman's thing. Anyway, I just some comments on emergency use. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Les.
Anyone else in the audience? Is there anyone online that would like to make public comment? Please raise your hand. Okay.
not seeing anybody.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any thoughts from the council? Okay, thank you. On to City Hall.
Okay, on to City Hall. So the presentation for City Hall is similar. In the case of City Hall, we have two floor plans to present as two options and a few more concepts of what the building might look like. But I'm going to start with the first option and its site plan. This is where we are sitting on the site. What you'll see here is there's a red outline. The existing City Hall as it sits on the site. There's an existing garage and then a couple existing sheds here in the parking area for reference. The proposed building in this option one, you'll see is outlined. One thing that is striking about this layout is the turn at the front of the building. That would be the location for the council chamber. It is rotated that way for a few different reasons. One thing that we were looking at was the weather patterns, so both wind and sun patterns. In the winter, wind comes primarily from the southwest, so we would have an opportunity here to create an entry that is a little buffered and sheltered from that cold winter wind. The summer wind comes from the northwest. The sun also, down here in the corner, we show where it is rising and setting at both the summer solstice and winter solstice. We would have the sun setting in the summertime at that west facade. In the wintertime, it sets a little bit, it sets similar location to where the wind is coming from. Another thing that's important here to note, and this will be on both options, currently the building sits over the property line on the south side of the property by about a foot or a foot and a half. Both of these options include a 20-foot setback along that south side. So the building will be buffered from the residents south of here. We're proposing a main entry courtyard. And by doing that, we are losing the few of the parking spaces that are currently out front. We are able to find efficiencies at the back of the building. So right now, the plan you're looking at has 30 parking spaces in the back of the building, which should be sufficient for staff parking. That way, staff parking wouldn't burden the parking, the lower parking or the street parking. We have also incorporated into the building footprint the function of the garage. Right now, there's an exterior garage and a couple sheds. We have in this a loading area with an overhead door that would lead into an unconditioned garage space in the same building envelope. We also have a couple more parking spaces you'll see adjacent to the.
Zoom into that area.
Here, yeah. So because much of the parking is in back and the parking out front is lower, we've incorporated a couple of spaces for accessible parking near the primary public entry. So these couple spaces would be accessed from the lower parking through that current drive aisle and be dedicated to accessible parking.
One of the things that Leslie didn't mention, part of the angling of that, of the council chambers, is also to acknowledge the view to the rock. So that plaza will have kind of a line of sight to the rock.
Right. So this is an approximate angle there of where that visibility is from. Another thing that I didn't mention is a separate staff entry. So in the back of the building, there's a couple doors here. One would be a primary staff entry for all the departments. The second door, as you'll see when we look at the floor plan, leads directly to a mudroom, which would be shared by Public Works and HRAP, a place to take off dirty equipment and boots and get them dried, and then go from there directly to their departments. Adjacent to that staff entry plaza, we have a space for staff with a couple tables shown to be outside, say during a lunch break. This plan does include redoing the curb cuts and drive aisles. So the front one, we are showing eliminated. This would be pedestrian access only into this entry plaza. And in order to be more efficient with our parking at the back of the building, we would be proposing relocating where the current driveways are. On this site, I will also mention, we do have the geotech report back. It was encouraging in terms of what will be required for the foundations and the piles. We've had our structural engineer look at it and make some revised recommendations. We're currently working through that. The survey for this site, though, has not been recently updated. That's something that is pending. And so how exactly this parking in the back lays out will need to be confirmed once we have an updated survey.
But a quick key on the geotech, I think that the old piles were requiring, they were thinking it would require 100 foot and the new piles are, I think, 35. So
And
significantly better pile situation.
significantly shorter and significantly smaller in diameter.
So how deep would they go?
I believe the current recommendation is 35 feet.
Oh, okay.
And then it was, like, do you remember
I think
what?
the diameter originally, we had assumed 18 inches and went down, I want to say to 6.
Yeah, they were smaller. And then they battered some of them as well. So some of them were actually angled into the earth versus straight down.
How high would the building be?
So we have kept, it's a single story wood frame building. We kept the eaves.
I think you mean slab,
From the ground
Oh.
up?
like the
Is it going to be a ground level or is it going to be raised?
It's a ground level, single story at ground level.
You'd be at approximately the same elevation as you are here.
It'll be just wiped out completely when the tsunami hits, right?
Of sufficient size. Any questions here before I move to the floor plan?
Are you doing second site plan? Are you doing,
Gonna do this option.
yeah, sorry.
How many square feet?
I'll go to this floor plan. So the building total here, well, all the departments here are 10,117 square feet. Plus there is a 604 square foot garage attached. So the total building here is 10,000, just over 10,700 square feet.
And what is this building now? Of course, it houses not just City Hall, but the police station, but I'm just curious, so I can just sort of get a relative size. Do you know what?
My best information is that this building is about 10,300 square feet. But then you have a few outbuildings as well.
Include the modular.
Well, it's a little hard to tell because we didn't do the existing building survey. My understanding is yes. It likely includes the modular.
Sorry, it was.
It does.
Because it's inside the building, it does count, yeah.
The existing building also encompasses more land than it should. So,
I just wanted to make sure I understand, and I think I do, but the current public parking is unchanged in this. The public entry that you show does not take away any public parking. It just takes away what parking is right out here.
Parking that's right out.
Okay.
And the parking behind the building, is that strictly staff or is it staff and customer or public parking?
So I wanted to be sure in laying this out that it was sufficient for staff parking. I think how that is enforced is not clear to me. I would imagine it would be open parking and other people would be able to park there, unless that is not how the city chooses to function.
If they parked in that back, then they'd have to walk all the way around the building to get to the front building, right? So they have to walk a block in order to get to the building.
Or if the public did, correct?
The public parking on the north side of Gower remains,
Yes.
so we could potentially devote more of that to
Yeah, more
City Hall parking.
It's not been consideration for making this public parking.
No,
What was that?
No,
There's not been consideration for saying that this would become public parking. It would.
not public parking. I think Nancy's concern is, people who are coming into City Hall doing city business.
We would just probably maintain those spaces that we have across the street.
Yeah.
It's and we might add a space. But it would be City Hall business only for 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can zoom in here for better viewing, but this front part of the building is the area that would be open to the public. So a primary public entry into a public lobby with direct access to finance, reception, direct access to the council chambers, and a small conference room. The small conference room here would be for general building use, for conversations that happen outside of council chambers, for quick meetings between public or community development and the public that comes in to review plans, or any other of the departments in the building who need to meet with public in a better location than the public lobby.
Right.
So to have a table and share drawings.
That function occurs on the counter in finance. And it's like, let's get that out of there and then have a small conference room that people can have those kind of discussions separate.
The other portion here open to the public are the public restrooms. And then we have a storage room adjacent to the chamber for tables and chairs. The other thing you'll see here, there is a small countertop here that is open to the public area. That is because you'll see the break room is quite further into the interior of the building. So to have a place for beverages, for evening meetings, or for some public concessions. Zooming back out just a little bit and going through the departments. Orange here is the finance department. Green is a shared community development and public works department. The executive and IT department is down on the south side of the building. Central in the building are some of these common building core elements for shared use, general building storage, a centralized copy print work area, and a staff break room. One thing I mentioned previously are the two doors for the staff entries, one of them going directly into a central corridor. The second one going into a mudroom that then has access to the Haystack Rock Appreciation Program Department and into the public works, so public work mailboxes and the public work general work area. This layout has been presented to the department heads for some initial feedback there. Again, we've been working with them to make sure that this functions the way each department needs it to function. In terms of what this will look like, we have a couple pictures to show you, just to show you where we are trending. Again, these are concepts. This is one concept that we're working with. We are still continuing to review the council chamber. I think the council chamber will require further exercise in design to make sure we get the size of it exactly right. We have some flexibility for the size and shape of it to evolve, and its lighting to make sure that audio visual systems work optimally. So balancing that natural light again with the technology that will be in there. Along Gower Street, we were attracted to the idea of a streetscape here. So there are some variations in the facade along Gower Street so that it's not a long, solid facade. This option has not only a protective canopy over that entry nook and alcove, but also over the west face of that council chamber. The second option, this one here, this is based on the same floor plan. It's articulated a little bit differently. In any of these, we've been looking at a combination of cedar siding and cedar shakes. And then I think unless there's questions, I'll present the second option. So this takes us back to the site plan. The building is located similarly in the location of the current city hall. The parking in the back remains largely similar. One thing I didn't mention on the last one, but is a little different on this one, is we pulled the generator away from the building. So that's this over on the right is an enclosure for the generator. So we did lose one parking space back there if that's the preferred option. This takes away that angle, so it squares everything up. And simplifies in that way. Also makes the courtyard, the entry courtyard, a little bit bigger. It has similar accessible parking on the southwest corner with access to that public courtyard. The floor plan here. So this building is within 50 square feet. The same, both of these options are very comparable in terms of overall square footage. Either one that is selected to move forward with, we would continue to push and pull and optimize things, and they would be both, they are in that target range of our initial projections. So this one has the council chamber a little bit more integrated into the overall building. Again, the primary entry with a small lobby and access to finance as a reception. Also access from that public area, the small conference room and the public restrooms. This option shares the mudroom entry in the back and that shared amenity both between HRAP in the northeast corner and the Public Works Community Development Departments.
Primarily, the design has been worked through with the department, so the back side is very comparable in the way it's laid out because that had been worked through. So you're seeing the front adjust, but the back stay primarily the same. Sorry. Like me to repeat myself? I've been told I'm not talking loud enough. Primarily, the rear of the building is the same because that had been worked through.
Yeah, so the primary difference here is really how that front entry works in terms of the public space and what happens when you walk in that front door. This one, the front of the building is shaped a little bit differently. So we were looking at a little bit different ways to articulate it.
What's the cost difference between the two? Roughly.
Right now, we're very similar in square footage. I will say option one maybe has a little bit more of a cost premium just because change in direction and angles and things cost dollars. So, I mean, as far as construction goes, square is better.
What is between the two buildings? Is that a door between the two buildings?
So this does have a door shown in the rendering here. This is based on an iteration we were looking at that had the council chamber deeper into the interior of the building. So in this, what you're seeing is a second exterior entry from the council chamber or an exit from the council chamber.
Would the public be able to get into that door?
That would be an operational question. It could be exit only and could feature hardware as exit only. The council chamber will require more than one exit. Alternatively, it could be used as an evening entry. In conversations, it sounds like the preference would be to have an entry through the primary lobby.
Yeah, because I'm a little concerned about security nowadays, especially.
But all of them need to access the toilet rooms and so you're going to be coming into that lobby space to do that. So if it can easily be just an emergency exit only. Do you have one more view?
And both options, you don't have that one solid facade. You have in offsets, which I really like. I think that makes it, it almost looks like several small buildings from which is nice.
Honestly, I spent a lot of time here with Bruce, walking and looking at buildings and talking about streetscape to make sure that it didn't feel too large.
Yeah.
I have questions about cost. All the cost contingencies we talked about for a police station are also involved here.
The same percentage.
And in this case, also temporary office space when workers are displaced, that's all part of the price we've been looking at.
Demolition of this building complete and then the temporary quarters. Now, I say there's dollars in there, there's $200,000 in there for the temporary quarters. We don't know what that looks like or what those requirements are going to be, so we're going to have to manage within that budget, but yes.
Okay.
Where would you put those?
Still don't know. My initial thought was somewhere out front, but I don't know if there's other of spaces available within the city that we can relocate folks. Don't quite know how many folks we have to relocate, but typically in projects like this, we put them close. And then if those parking lot spaces are available, that's where we'd like to put them. Although I'd like it for construction staging as well, so.
So there's been some public comment regarding the cost of this project and comparable projects. Have you seen any of that?
I've heard some of that. I haven't been able to look at the comparable costs in detail. It's really hard to speak apples to apples with different types of construction projects. I guess what I can say on this project, especially what we've been tasked with as far as putting together this budget, is I've been asked to look at what a gallon of gas is going to cost in 3 years within, 5% of accuracy for two large construction projects on the coast. I am comfortable with the cost that we provided can build these two projects 3 years from now, 2 years from now for what we're providing. Do I think the cost per square foot is a little higher than what you normally see? I do, but I can't go over, right? So I have to be conservative for this project.
And why do you think it's a little higher? Why would it be higher for this project versus other projects?
There's a couple reasons. So there's some very specific items to these projects that are adding cost, just right out of the bat, aside from different from other projects. Soil improvements could be $700 to $1 million of premium just in the soil improvements. Like Gary said, the temp quarters, $250,000 there that we've got to account for. I lost my train of thought. The locality of this project. I've done a lot of large construction projects on the coast. There is a premium for doing work here, not only getting the labor force and materials here, but also the weather has a cost and an effect on the construction and the schedule. So there's premiums there as well. I guess the fourth point would be that we are looking 2 years into the future of when this project's going to be built. We're going to be going through escalation, an presidential election here in a year, all variables that play into our industry.
Also, we're, planning on using, from the exterior standpoint, premium materials. We're going to be using cedar shake, that sort of thing, to try to match what the community has or is used traditionally. And so there's going to be an additional cost. But when you look at the floor plan, the floor plans are very efficient. If somebody wants to reduce the cost, you reduce the size of the building. And if you look in there, pretty much just the people that we've got now is what would fit into that. And all the spaces are smaller than what they are now. My office is currently 170 square feet. Mine will be like everybody else's that's a manager would be 140 square feet. So, I mean, we're not all the kind of things that we're doing, even the back. There's articulation and Lisa mentioned that along Gower. All right, there's no articulation along the back of the building. There doesn't need to be. We're not going to pay for it.
Right. And the building isn't, I just want to reiterate this, the building is no bigger really than this building.
Correct.
Yeah, you're absorbing the PD square footage they currently have here.
So these are the numbers here. I'm zooming in on for this option. The primary functional office space for this proposal is 10,117. The other one is, I think, 35 square feet less than that. That's compared to this current building that is about 10,300 square feet. There is on top of that, the 600 square feet of unconditioned storage space. So that's where we're getting that slightly higher 10,700 square foot number.
But you found some efficiencies in space, for instance, a modular trailer.
We were, so I have our programming document in front of me. I've spent a lot of time with this document as I've worked through this. We had anticipated for the primary office area, 10,263 square feet. So that was my target, and anything I can do to beat that has been my goal, without, of course, sacrificing the function for the departments.
There's also been some public comment about green building materials and design. Can you tell us, is any of that part of this program?
Sure. So we have retained our WDI. They'll be our sustainability consultant. We also have on board R&W, who will be designing the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, in which there's a lot of opportunity for sustainable options. So throughout the process, we'll be looking at ways to implement green ideas within the budget. We know we have a budget here that is a cap, and so we'll be reviewing what we can do.
And we'll start to see those things now that we'll start to see it in Cannon Beach Elementary because we're in design development. That's when those things show up. And so this will be in design development in what, 6 months, thereabouts. That's when we'll start seeing, more implementation of those kind of systems.
The key is that we have all the right people at the table that can offer us guidance, and they can be decisions that we make, or we can plan that we cannot afford it now, but we can plan smartly to incorporate things in the future. So there's always an eye to the future and what we can do as much as possible currently.
The Oregon Department of Energy requires a 1.5% of the project costs go to renewable energy. So all public projects moving forward for the past, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years at least, have had that requirement. So typically what you'll see that is in the form of solar panels. Geothermal is another one, but it's not likely in this area or very many places, but you'll see solar panels that'll go towards that 1.5%.
And again, we're talking about the category for seismic here.
Yes. I will add with the discussion about sustainability that we'll be looking at a couple things. We'll be looking at things that can immediately be implemented and then looking at their long-term performance and maintenance over time. So things that can save operating costs.
Such as?
Such as various methods for water heating or for electrical. Everything now is LED. And so that's no longer a conversation, but in terms of HVAC, so the air conditioning systems, we can look at things like natural ventilation as they relate to that and what impacts that have for operations, maintenance, and performance.
Thank you, Leslie. What Jordan's point about the possibility, or is it that you feel that there definitely would be solar panels incorporated into the building?
There is a percentage of the budget that is mandated to be dedicated to certain green energy components. We have some options of what those are, but Jordan is correct that what I have most often seen done is putting that money towards solar panels.
And so how do you feel that your design would be able to incorporate those to make them work the most efficient?
We would be because of our attempt on the streetscape here and to fit in with the character of Cannon Beach, we do have a lot of roof slopes. We would be looking at the orientation of those roof slopes to make sure that where we put solar panels, should we go that route, is going to be optimal.
Okay.
For this location.
There's always a study done at the beginning of a project when we start going down this road of renewable energy, looking at one is the project viable for solar. There are certain sites that just aren't viable for solar, so that kind of checks that off. If this site is viable based on the study, then it'll dictate where the solar panels need to go.
The other thing I would say that what you see in those renderings is primarily what's happening on the roof at council chambers and along Gower. But because this is a fairly large building, we have flexibility at the southern wing to modify the roof to be appropriate for solar panels is one option, but also to act as screening for potential heating and cooling equipment that might be located on the roof.
Almost a flat roof back there if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so what are we looking at for timing of these two projects? Are they simultaneous? Are they staggered?
Currently at this early stage, we're simultaneous. We're linear together. Our hope is that we can get PD moving ahead of City Hall. It does a couple things for us. It allows us to get some cost certainty on the PD piece while we're still figuring out the City Hall piece. What it also does is allows us to mobilize and get moving on the PD project early and then stagger our subcontractors through the two projects. For example, concrete's done up there. Now we can move them down here and stack the trades that way.
So there's some efficiencies.
If we only need a couple months gain on the PD, but that would be our goal. Yes.
Okay.
Our hope is that because the police department is a smaller building, it's a simpler building, that it will depend some on our approvals to move forward through the phases. But if we can expedite the schematic design period on just the police department, decouple the two projects and keep that one moving faster, that would be our ideal.
I haven't really heard it, but it seems to be maybe there is an ask on your part about staging City Hall somewhere. It seems like you maybe need some more.
It is going to be a problem or an issue that we need to address during design. Yes.
I think to reiterate, one of the comments that I think you started to make or made was that if there's a location in town that makes sense to relocate them, there could be cost savings and also not having them, kind of in the public parking area. That would, I think that's where you currently have them assumed to be, but there might be a more cost-effective or better solutions larger in the community.
And other possibilities of using the parking you've got in the rear, and that's the last thing you finish then?
For you folks or for
temporary?
For us? Oh, for temporary?
Yeah.
No, I'd like that too. I would rather have construction allocated to that back parking lot and give you guys the front than the other way around. But there is it just really depends on how much space you guys need, how many people we need to house back there. That was what I typically envisioned as our staging and lay down area. And then we do the parking last. Yes.
Okay.
That keeps us off street side, keeps us kind of tucked back behind the construction. Yeah.
Any other questions? Or comments? Okay, then we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anybody like to make any comment or have any questions? Sam?
Sounds like Jan.
Yeah, just two really simple things. Rusty, we are going to have this on the web soon.
Yes, I will post the presentation probably tomorrow.
Yes. Again, I just want to reinforce the fact that this is conceptual. One of the big dangers for presenting conceptual plans is that people log onto them immediately and say, this is it. It's not. Obviously, they've mentioned that. Things will change. Saying that, I'm going to offer a bunch of ideas and concept after I can look at them with a little more detail. And I'll offer them to Jennifer and Leslie. And a better suiting for myself because it's really hard to just immediately see it in the last half hour and be able to make the critique. So other than that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Jan?
And Siebert Warman, PO Box 778. I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So with the back parking lot, you won't be doing anything to harm any of those trees back there? Because we've worked really hard in past years to keep those trees. And the neighbors also have really wanted that protection. So I would just ask that if you can possibly respect those trees as much as possible. And also, I just wanted to say, just a personal thing, design wise, aesthetically, I really prefer the second building. Maybe because it's more similar to what we have now, but also, and because maybe you had some trees on the Gower Street area there. You showed some when you had the actual picture of the building. Anyway, I would love to have as many trees as possible with this building. It's what makes our town so beautiful, I think. And we're losing a lot of them every day. At least some every day, it seems like. And let me think of anything else. Again, if you could tweak it back at all, but I'm really grateful. It's not much bigger than what we have now. I think that second one is especially lovely. And yeah, thank you.
Can you clarify if it was the site plan you like on the second one or the elevation?
It's the elevation, I guess, when you show the actual 3D. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know, just the other thing I wondered was with the plaza area in the front, with both of them, are you like envisioning like a brick plaza, or it looks kind of like that in one of the drawings, but I'm just wondering, I personally would go with less of a plaza and more landscaping, but that's just so.
We have engaged Joyce Jackson is our landscape architect on this project, and has started to look at this and explore ideas for what that plaza could become.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Next. Molly?
Hi, I'm Molly Champion, PO Box 6 months. And I've already put in most of my questions, but I'd like to go back to the final question I had that was submitted to your packets. Thank you, Jen. And that is the green part. I like the fact that you brought it up, but it still seems very nebulous to me about the intent to make sure that we use things like low water toilets. We now have the windows that are solar windows that do a multiple part of jobs, and the incentives for these tax wise and through manufacturing, etc. And plus, from all that I've been able to read, the state is going to mandate more of this by 2025. So it would seem, rather than have to retrofit anything, that in the cost analysis, as you're all deciding the cost for these buildings, that this should move up from more of a we'll try to do to it should be a first priority, is what I'm hoping to see. We join the rest of the world to try to lessen our use of fossil fuels, etc., and take advantage of these. In other words, I didn't hear tonight that it's gone, but it doesn't sound like a high priority in this discussion tonight. And I would love to see it move to a higher priority in these two buildings, and also at the school site too. So thank you for your presentation and your time. And I hope that you do consider green to be a very important part of the cost analysis of these buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Anyone else in the audience?
Rand Spad, box 794. Have we already hired the architectural firm and the contracting firm?
Yes.
Because I would think, I like these architectural plans, but it seems to me you take those plans and put that open for bid to various contractors.
The way that we're doing this is called construction management. And we hired a construction manager. In this case, it's Emmerich. And what they will do is they will bid out all the subcontractor plans. So they will be responsible for building the structure. They're also involved with planning the structure. So there's some efficiencies there. But all of the mechanical, civil, all those kind will all be bid out. And it's a public bidding process.
Because it sounds like you've got some contingencies for price increases.
Mhm.
I'd rather see a base price and then to come back and ask for more money as needed. It sounds like you have some contingency built in.
Correct.
I'd rather go with a flat price and then come back and with a logical request for more money.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do want to point out that when we selected the architect and the engineer or the construction person, they all did their own bid. We bid it out. It was a competition. And these are the people we selected. So all of that has been done. It's not been you're going to do it. It's all been a
And I
bidding
like, I
process.
like the plans. I'm both.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone online that would like to make a comment? Nobody? Okay, thank you. Any last questions council has? Or comments? Okay, then I would like to close the work session and start the special meeting.
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the next process?
That's what I was gonna ask the council. Are you ready to select one of the floor plans, which in the floor plans drive the elevations? Or do you want further development and to come back to you? Because if we can we can continue to do this on a two-tier track. But if we have a single floor plan that we're working from, then everything becomes more efficient. And we don't have to come back to you so many times for, well, do you like A or do you like B? So that's something that you need to decide. You don't have to decide it tonight, but we'll have to decide it soon.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of hard to do it just with seeing it. Yeah, I'd like to
That's understood.
think about it at least for a few days.
And as we mentioned, things will change. We're still having discussions. We're still evolving. Our consultants are all adding input, which may adjust things. So ultimately what we're asking for is direction on which ones you prefer. And then we can march them down that way. Not that the exact wall will be here and the exact wall will be here. That will be dictated as we move forward.
And as far as the two city hall buildings tonight, I love that weird offset council chambers, but if it's more expensive, I'd rather that money be put into, more green building techniques and just have because as long as you have those offsets, it looks great. And so I'd rather see them, not spend the money on the cool angle, but spend the money more on, making the building really efficient and environmentally friendly.
Lisa is speaking for me again.
Isn't that
That's
silly as well?
exactly what I thought.
Yeah, I agree as well.
So what kind of a time frame? Oh,
Well, the floor plan drives the elevation. And whether that is tilted some or not, I don't know how much of a difference it makes. But from a staff standpoint, there's a strong preference for the floor plan A, the first one.
The square one.
No, she has them reversed.
Oh, I do have them. This one.
This one here.
Oh,
It separates the public and the staff areas better. It provides more security. And then one of the Nancy, when you said that, it's possible to get through the building. And anyway, so there is a preference from the staff standpoint, which is this particular one, whether or not it's tilted. We can try to get a cost on that. I don't think it'll be that high of a cost. That would make a big difference. But that's just want to let you know.
Design wise, I agree.
Yeah.
I was more swayed by Jordan telling us that
I didn't, yeah.
It was cheaper.
It is. I mean, it is, but we're dealing with the same square footage. It's just a little more complication in the roof line and the way things are oriented there and how those come together. I mean, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars by any stretch.
You know, what we are talking about though.
I mean, if
We are talking about, I'd like to know.
it's under $100,000, I can tell you that, just with those intersections and the change in roof lines. It's not much. I mean, $100,000 is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's not a large order of magnitude.
Then you offset that with the security concerns.
Well, is there also another component, Bruce, that the building, that layout in the option that the city staff would prefer is that the building just works more efficiently?
Yes.
Yes, and that would be, at first glance, that was my feeling, is that that setup would work more efficiently, and that would be my desire to get that type of building, because it's going to have more longevity. You're not going to have to try and, God forbid, remodel it because it's not working efficiently for the people that it was designed for. We're not increasing the square footage more for the current building. Hopefully it's designed more efficiently. But I'd like to be able to present something that's going to be fairly long-lived.
Great.
As we decouple, you can say, yes, we feel comfortable with police department moving forward with this. You guys are on the right track, continue. You can say, we're comfortable moving forward, but we must see more exploration here, and we can come back on the city hall. That's really our benefit to decoupling them, is that one's not linchpin to the other. One can march forward. And if they can both march forward at a good clip, that's beneficial for costs, because then if we continue to beat timeframes, we'll continue to beat cost escalation.
Are you relatively comfortable with the police station?
Yes.
Yes, I was very impressed with your presentation. Thank you.
Let's get started tomorrow.
That was going to be my very.
Yeah.
They're going up.
Yeah, so if that's all right with you, I mean, we'll come back and show you as things progress. But if that works, we can move forward.
Did you need any direction from the council of the proposals that were presented for the police department?
I think with the direction that we've received from the parties we presented the plans to, we have plenty to move forward with and refine them. My hope would be next time we come back to have those conversations had happened and have a more refined plan to get approval to then move forward on.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. Anything else?
Well, I guess I'd like to revisit this conversation. So we talked about the, kind of the pendulum swung a little bit in the conversation. And, for us having, if you really have a strong preference to one, it would be much better for us to focus on that one. And then I heard liking some of the exterior elements shown on the option 2, so we could take those and put those on option 1 and play that out. But if we had some guidance from you on your preference, that would help us.
What are we talking about?
Between the office.
Police station or
No.
back?
Oh, sorry, I switched to City Hall.
Okay.
I mean, I would defer to, if staff really preferred one over the other, that would mean a lot. I mean, that means a lot to me, that, and efficiency. As long as it's not going to take anything away from green construction, then I like it, but I like the way it looks.
Design wise, yes, I like it better too.
Yeah. I
And
just don't want it to be
to hear
You like,
about the
you
interest
like
in
which one?
the staff, the angled.
the angle one, just because the staff feels it's secure, more efficient, and they like it better, and they're the ones who have to work here.
And the public area just seems like it's more efficient.
So it's not weird looking. I mean, it's not like, triangular windows or anything. It's, it's still square. It's just, it's part of it's offset a little.
So are we all back to one? Option one is maybe our
From
preference.
a layout standpoint, if, to Bruce's point, whether that, wound up being offset as it is or not, I'm not particularly invested in that design concept. I would like, as Lisa said, to present something that works efficient. I've made that point already.
Fine with me. Yep, no problem.
Was there one of the exterior? Because like I said, we can take elements. That's the beauty of the way we're doing this. We can navigate elements from the exterior onto different plans. So if there's one that caught your eye more, we can take those features into another one. If that's the beauty of concept design, is that they're not independent.
I really like what do you call those things that are coming out on those things? Yeah, I like the way those look.
Yeah, I like that.
And they're sort of a little kind of rustic looking. And I also very much like the offset. I do like, I mean, it's long, but both of them have that. Don't they? Both designs have that, and I think that's really important to have that.
Crystal clear, right?
Yep.
This layman.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. I mean, I think that the scale, what we're hearing is the scale is appropriate.
Yeah.
That the streetscape concept helps minimize that scale, which makes it feel better. Proceed with the angle because that's from a staffing standpoint makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And then come back and maybe present a combined refined one that's for the exterior and hopefully that can march forward. And you guys will have time to look at the packet, and then if you have other comments, we can.
Would be nice to see a net gain in trees. And I think that south side maybe will allow that.
There will be many more trees on the south side. One of the things that we're waiting to see the survey result of is the survey that we have was done before that small retaining wall was put in back there. So exactly that location and its relation to existing trees, I'm not 100% confident about.
Yeah.
Leslie, the current building is quite tall for a single-story building. Is the proposed structure going to be less tall than current?
Yes, I believe in any of these, the ridge is slightly less tall than the top of the existing building.
Okay, so it definitely will have a much more residential, as presented quality to it. I like
I like that too.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Maybe we have an answer.
I would love that. Done another city hall. And one of the things we did in the city hall, in the chamber, is we made it an art gallery. And so it was not something that was decided after, it was designed as an art gallery. It had the professional hanging system, that sort of thing in it. It dealt with we're not going to have as many windows as you are because you want the display space. And so what I'd like you to think about is if you're like that idea, and what we did is that it was changed out every 2 months. We worked with different groups that would come in and completely change out the art as opposed to leaving it up like this is here. But if you're going to do that, then the chamber has to be designed from the inside as opposed to from the outside, how it's going to look on the outside of the building, how the windows look, that sort of thing. So I'd like you to think about that with the culture and the predominance of the arts here, that we could potentially go ahead and create a place where people could show their work.
He brings up a great question because it's how much visibility you want from Gower, how much glazing we want into the council chambers, because it's a very visible feature on the building versus, something that we would want on the inside. So there's a balance of preference.
We also have to think about monitors too, where we're going to put those, because these have become very integral to the council meetings.
Right.
Right.
And then it looks like you have at least windows on at least two sides, if not the south side as well. So I'm not sure we have art space.
I just think that I think it's really important to have some natural light in the council chambers. I mean, I think to me, it's awful not having any. You could walk outside and you have no idea what, if it's going to be dark or light, it just, yeah.
Beyond those things with the council chamber, I mentioned we do have some flexibility built into the plan about the exact dimensions of it. So to be thinking about when we get further into design about the layout of the dais and how it relates to the community, whether it makes sense to have a more square room or a longer, more rectilinear room. Those are all things we will be coming back to ask you.
Right now, the way that the room is shaped, it's roughly the same width as this and probably about another 4 feet. It probably would go out into the back wall would probably go out into the hallway a little bit. That's roughly the size.
So we've started to think about how the council seating would lay out, how that relates to the location of any windows and natural light to make sure that we're managing glare, visibility. All of these meetings are recorded. So considering how that translates in terms of cameras and lighting will all go into it.
I went into a chamber where they had the dais against the west wall with a whole lot of windows. And you couldn't even see somebody's face because it was so backlit.
That could be a blessing.
Yeah.
He makes fun of
I wasn't complaining.
fun of me at my house because I refuse to have curtains. And so he said, I don't want that. I'm just a
My preference would be for a longer rectangular shaped building, because to me, it would accommodate the audience members better.
We can come, so to the next meeting, part of what we can come with is some layouts to show you of that specific space.
One of the potential benefits of putting it along this wall, for example, is that everybody is closer. Like right now, you've got a certain distance and people talk about not being able to hear, that sort of thing. Now, instead of the distance that you have there, depending on where the dais is, the farthest seat would be where that wall is.
The curve is nice, but it is a lot of wasted space in the center here.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Is there any, I don't have any point of reference for what the acoustics are like in this room, other than people constantly complain about not being able to hear. And so I would just like to advocate for anything that can be done where we can either enhance whatever we're saying, and to Rusty's point, that this is somehow incompatible with
Microphones.
doing the
amplification.
Is there any way to
So
figure that out?
yeah, so there are a couple things that we can do. Our WDI is on board, so they do acoustics. So they will be looking at the space and providing guidance. In addition, R&W will also be able to provide some guidance. So we'll have professionals that can help us to that. And then Rusty's invaluable.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Try it again.
Let's try it again. Okay. I'd like to thank all of you, and I would like to close the work session and start the special meeting. So we're going to open the special meeting session and see if there's a motion from this evening's executive session.
Yes, I would like to move to waive attorney-client privilege on the final engineering report from Windsor Engineers.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, Jen, please.
Commissioner McCarthy, or Commissioner.
Sure. Oh, I'm making a motion.
Heard the motion.
Yes.
Counselor Hayes.
Yes.
Counselor Kerr.
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes, thank you. Okay, anything for good of the order? Ruth?
Two things. We talked about the potential to get a donation of $5,000 to help with some of the nuisance plant removal in Little Pompey. And we did responded back to them, asked if the funds could be used for hand removal. And they agreed.
Oh, great.
And they have delivered that check. And we will be, and this is the right time of year to do it. The seats haven't dropped. So what we would like to do is to schedule it as quickly as we can. However, it does require that we do a transfer of those funds. Now that we've received them, they need to be sent to the right place in parks. And then also there has to be a general ledger number assigned to it, all that. That's done by, I believe it's by resolution.
Budget amendment will be a resolution.
Yes, it'll be done. So we had that scheduled for September 5th, but if we're able to go ahead and I would like to move forward with trying to schedule the work so that we don't wait until the 5th and then maybe we miss that window. So is that acceptable to the council?
Yeah, it's
Yes,
really good
absolutely.
news.
Okay,
I'm
good. No,
happy to hear that.
Thank you. Next thing is that Pacific Power will be changing out a number of transformers that they have found to be a fire issue. And they'll be coming into the city to do that work. The work will be done by Aslan, which is their subcontractor. The work would be done on Fridays and Saturdays. And they may, if they find some other issues, they may address some of those issues while they're here. But the main thing is that they have some older equipment that is a potential fire hazard and they're trying to eliminate those things. So I was just trying to give you a heads up that that's what's going to be occurring, happen on Friday and Saturday. Friday and Saturdays over a period of time until they're done.
Which period of time?
Yes, when do they start?
I think they're supposed to start relatively soon.
Will power be out then? Is that?
No. No, it might be locally out for a short period of time. But only while they're changing out that equipment.
Okay.
It should not be citywide. Okay. Thank you.
Two pieces of good news. Lisa?
Oh, yeah, I would like to further discuss, I talked to Mr. Bash on Monday. He would very much like to be part of the committee, a member
Yes.
of the committee. I know you brought this up earlier and it was decided not to do it, but I'd like to re-bring it up because I think for him, it's very important that he actually be a committee member. And he feels like it's the right thing to do. Since it is an ACUS, whatever center it is, it makes sense to me that we have a tribal member on the committee itself. So I would really like to consider doing that.
Debatia also would like to be a member as well.
Yeah, that's a
Did you
different.
say that? Yeah.
That's a different, for a different reason. And I'm not so sure about conflict of interest on that, to tell you the truth. I
Yeah.
feel a little bit uncomfortable because she is the reporter and she's writing articles on it.
Well, she said that Will would write the articles.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
I'm just not, I'd have to think more about that or get another opinion about as far as conflict of interest, but for Mr. Bath, I don't see any conflict of interest.
So
We do have a notice out for next meeting and a request for anybody who on the committee did not want to continue. And I'm not sure if our resolution specified the size of the committee. It did?
Yeah.
So we would need to
Change the
look at that.
resolution.
but-
Yeah,
Or if somebody leaves, then
right,
maybe we've got,
right. Okay.
I'm not even.
Okay, anything else? So we will address that when we get some input into who's leaving, if there's anybody leaving the committee.
We'll address that at the first meeting if nobody leaves
Okay.
and see if we have to go through
A
redoing.
change. Yeah.
Yes.
You know when the next meeting is?
No, that's part of the email that's out there now. People should be responding to
It's okay if Bruce tells Mr. Bash that that is an eventuality.
I think so. I mean,
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Can we go over September?
Sure, it'll be here next.
Yeah, so great news, council. This is your last meeting for the month of August.
Thank you, Brandon, for
Oh.
going on vacation.
So just,
Amanda goes on vacation, we all go on vacation.
our first meeting is September 5th. That's the first Tuesday of the month.
Oh.
We have our work session on the 12th. On the 13th is the code audits.
Just a minute, hold it. Wait a minute. Let me get my calendar out.
And then the 19th is the FCS group utility rate discussion. We do have the 18th on hold if needed. So we do have one meeting kind of on hold. So
What's the meeting? What's the date of the meeting on hold?
the 18th,
18th?
Monday.
it's a Monday.
Got them all.
So
And we still have a whole week with no meetings, so.
Yeah, can we reserve that one?
We can talk about it.
Okay, anything else? I'm not gonna look over there.
Around this time, every year, I have asked the council if we can add one holiday through the New Year's and Christmas holiday time. And
Only August.
I know, but it requires a resolution.
Oh, okay.
And I think, what is the date? But and what we try to do is to give employees 2 4-day weekends. And
Christmas is on a Monday.
yeah, and so
The Tuesday after Christmas, you want to include.
well,
uh,
so how it works is
Yeah.
our holidays are Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Christmas Eve is on a Sunday, so per the union contracts at the SEIU contract, you observe it on Monday, but Monday is an actual holiday because it's Christmas, so it bumps to Tuesday.
Mhm.
So
that's 1 4-day weekend.
So that's 1 4-day weekend. The New Year's Day is on Monday, the 1st. And so if you wanted a second 4-day weekend, it would be December 29th, the Friday before. But just a quick reminder, this is just SEIU. The police guild is different. They don't observe holidays. Holidays are the holiday no matter what, because they are 7 days a week. So their extra day would just be connected to the actual holiday. So there's always going to be a little bit of difference when we bring it to approval. You're going to see one date for SEIU and one date for the guild.
There's a compensation difference for the police officers because they work that.
So then that week of Christmas, it would be a 2-day work week.
Yes,
That'll be productive.
it's a pretty quiet time anyway. Nobody comes in.
Okay, so you'll bring a resolution.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Okay with everyone?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay,
I'm done.
anything else? Okay,